super excited are you that the November deadline has been shoved forward to August 4?
You know, that was the most exciting thing I heard all year. But in a way, we were kind of prepared for it because we knew that even that November date we knew early on was in flux. So we were prepared to get the work done earlier. But the problem is with a film like this, you always want as much time as you could possibly get because there's always things you could think of. What if we try this? What if we try that? What if we do this? But what it does do is it forces everyone to focus and say, okay, what does the story really need? And that's what we're going to do. Yeah.
Now, this is I think the major difference of this film from other blockbusters with similar amount of digital effects is the focus on the emotion. Literally, that's the entire crux of the film. Now, we as normal cinema goers can see a movie like this and know if it's real or not, but we don't know why when it doesn't work. Can you please tell us what is it that an expert can see in a digital shot that gives it away?
If it's a character-driven shot, there's a couple of things that will give it away, but the biggest one really is the emotion. It's the fleeting moments that happen across your face because everyone is so used to that when you speak with another person, you know, but it's one of the hardest things in the world to quantify at a technical level because it's so complex what actually goes on in human faces. So what we tried to do is to just bring that same level of emotional realism to the apes.
So is it micro wrinkles, micro flashes of movement? What is it exactly?
Mostly micro flashes of movement. Yes, exactly. And it's not even that the movements may or may not be right, but they all have to be right at exactly the same time and going in exactly the right directions to actually have the convincing sense of an emotional moment.
Having seen Andy Serkis's work beforehand being ignored and snubbed by the Academy, do you think they're ready to step up and give the man his fair due?
I would certainly hope so, because I think there's been a feeling in the Academy with this kind of work, you know, over the years that it's visual effects. But as visual effects artists, what we've really been trying to do is to say, no, this is about actors. We've been trying to kind of bridge the gap between the two, because ultimately it is all about performance. And movies are collaborative art. And what we do with Andy is to just make sure that he's got the leading role. You know, he defines what the character and what the performance is doing, and we figure out how to make that performance look believable as a chimp in this case.
Now, I can understand there's a few things going on at WETA at the moment. Is there a massive amount of competition between, I guess, the three major films operating at the moment? Looking at, say, Tintin or even Lord of the Rings, you might actually have the edge up on these guys.
Well, I mean, we're always looking for, you know, projects that like sort of tickle our imagination in that way. This was one of them, absolutely. And because we are so character driven in what we do, it naturally feeds into, you know, other stories like Tintin, and of course Lord of the Rings is part of our history. So, and that's where a lot of this got started with Andy and us working with him to do Gollum. It leads in a direct line back to what we're doing here with Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So for us, it's all kind of one big mix.
I think ultimately there's a technical challenge, which is to get that emotional response. But the interesting thing is the blend between ape emotion and human emotion. How much, where do you stop? I mean, do you actually say, take it to an audience and say, look, do you get it? Or do you come up with your own technical results?
I think we're our own best critics in that regard, you know, because we study chimp behavior, for example, extensively. But what chimps do to express emotion, even though they're very human-like, is actually slightly different. And an audience may not actually understand the chimp response in a given situation, because a movie goes by, you don't have time to study it. The audience needs to understand it. And so we actually bring a few humanizing elements into it where it's appropriate and make that part of the translation that we do from the actor's performance to what you're seeing on the screen. And I think we are pretty aware ourselves of when that's working or when it's not working, and we use that as our better judgment.
Now, from a story perspective, this has a real challenge because basically we know everything that's going to happen in the film. How do you make that compelling?
The way to make that compelling is to follow the story, because That's really what's interesting to us, right? I mean, a lot of people go to movies and they say, "Oh, I kind of knew how it was going to end," but they go see it anyway. You know, okay, look, Titanic was the perfect example, right? You know, it's all about the story. People want to understand how it happens and why it happens, and how people relate to each other, because it's those moments that we all learn from. That's what we identify with.
Okay. Obviously, anybody who wants to make a decent movie these days with digital effects will have a chat with WETA. How booked out are you? Can you actually, if somebody wants to come to WETA and say, we'd like to make a movie in 2015, is that possible, or do they have to wait until 2017?
No, it's absolutely possible. We still like to look at whatever projects are out there, you know, because for us it's all about where's the imagination going? You know, if someone has a great idea for a film and we, you know, really have some ideas that we think could contribute to it, we try to do whatever we can to figure out a way to make it work.
Now, I've had a chat with a couple of the chaps over at ILM, and they feel that the digital effects world is one big happy family, but obviously that's bullshit. How happy are you to kind of take the mantle, especially leading the way with outdoor mocap, that ILM kind of is a little bit dragging behind?
You know, again, these things are really all story driven. If, you know, if ILM gets a film that requires them to push it a little bit, I'm sure they will. We actually do all know each other, and there's a lot more collaboration than you might think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it really is one big happy family.
Well, the technical stuff is so hard that you, in a way, want to put that behind you. You want to get that to the point where it just works so you can concentrate on the storytelling and the filmmaking.
Okay. Now, the amount of computing power that's used to render these things is just phenomenal. Now, I believe you said it was one frame took overnight to render. Do you have any idea of the technical specifications that are involved with a shot, say with several apes running in through frame?
Yeah, sure. We generally try to get things so that they're doable overnight, because that's our turnaround time. This comes from the old film days, right, where you would shoot something, you'd send it to the lab, and you'd see it in the morning. We have dailies just the same way. So we try to just actually parcel our work so that we can turn it around. And what that means is we just divide our computing resources. So if you've got more apes in one shot, we'll throw more computers at it. But we do like to be able to see things in that daily run, because it's worked for 100 years for making film, so it works best for us.
Okay, so I love that you're actually taking the way of making movies that they've always been and just updating with new gadgets.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Joe Letteri, thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
And congratulations on a phenomenal effort.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.